and welcome to today's On This Day in Tudor History with me, Claire Ridgway. I'm the author of several Tudor history books and I also run the Tudor Society and the Anne Boleyn Files. Okay, where am I taking you today? Well, on this day in Tudor history, the 25th of July 1554, which was the feast of St. James, 38-year-old Queen Mary I, who was of course the daughter of King Henry VIII and his first wife Catherine of Aragon, married 27-year-old Philip of Spain, Philip being the son of Emperor Charles V. He was the Holy Roman Emperor, and the two of them got married at Winchester Cathedral. Stephen Gardiner, who was Bishop of Winchester and who was also Mary's Lord Chancellor, officiated at the ceremony at this public spectacle and what was a state occasion. Now, Mary had chosen the fashionable French style for her outfit, wearing a gown of rich tissue with a border and wide sleeves, embroidered upon purple satin, set with pearls of our store, lined with purple taffeta. It sounds absolutely sumptuous. The dress also had a partlet, a high collar, a kirtle of white satin embroidered with silver, and a train, so she very much looked the part. Gardiner began the ceremony by making a speech regarding the marriage treaty, and then he announced that the emperor had settled the kingdom of Naples on his son, the groom. He then went on to the marriage ceremony itself, pronouncing it in both English and Latin before celebrating the Mass. Our chronicler Charles Wriothesley gives an account of the wedding in his chronicle, and here is what he said of this ceremony. The 25th of July being Wednesday and St. James' Day, about 11 of the clock, the King and Queen came from their lodgings towards the church, all the way on foot, very richly apparelled in gowns of cloth of gold set with rich stones, he with his gentlemen and guard, and she with hers, each of them having a sword borne before them, the Earl of Derby bearing the sword before Her Majesty, and the Earl of Pembroke before the King. And when they were come into the church, he went into one traverse, and the Queen to another, richly hung, where they were shriven. This done, they came forth of their traverse to the place appointed for the marriage, where the Lord Chancellor, being before with 5 other bishops assisting him, used all things, both in the banns bidding and otherwise, as hath been in all marriages of old time, and spake it both in Latin and in English, her Grace on the right side standing, and the King on the left side. Her marriage ring was a round hoop of gold without any stone, which was her desire, for she said she would be married as maidens were in the old time, and so she was. After the marriage not thus knit, the King and Queen came hand in hand under a rich canopy, being borne over them with 6 knights and 2 swords before them, all the lords, both English and strangers, richly apparelled going afore them. The trumpets then blowing till they came into the choir, where all the priests and singing men, all in rich copes, began to sing a psalm used in marriages, the King and Queen kneeling a while before the altar, each of them having a taper afore them. Then, after Her Majesty went into her traverse on the right side, and the King into another on the left side, after the gospel, they came out and kneeled before the altar openly all the mass time, and the care cloth was holden over them, and he kissed the bishop at the Agnes and then Her Majesty. The mass done, the King of Heralds openly in the church and in presence of the King, the Queen, the lords and ladies, and all the people, solemnly proclaimed their Majesties, King and Queen, with their title and style, in manner as followeth. Philip and Mary, by the grace of God, King and Queen of England, France, Naples, Jerusalem and Ireland, defenders of the faith, princes of Spain and Sicily, archdukes of Austria, dukes of Milan, Burgundy and Brabant, counts of Habsburg, Flanders and Tyrol, which proclamation ended, the trumpets blew, and other noises played. And then the king and queen came forth hand in hand, with their lords, ladies, and gentlemen waiting on them, and 2 swords borne afore them in manner aforesaid. And so went on foot to the court, and there dined openly in the hall, both together at one table. So that is a contemporary account of the ceremony by Windsor Herald and chronicler Charles Wriothesley, and I thought I'd share that whole account with you because it's much better to give it you in Wriothesley's words than for me to paraphrase it. So a very detailed account. Now, the next day, an ecstatic Queen Mary I wrote to her new father-in-law, Emperor Charles V. She wrote that, "I hear that the king, my husband, is sending Count Horn to report to your majesty that he has arrived in this kingdom and that the marriage between us two was celebrated on St. James's Day. I do not wish to let Count Horn go without praying him to tell your majesty how happy the arrival of his highness has made me, and present to you my humble commendations and thanks for allying me with a prince so full of virtues that the realm's honour and tranquillity will certainly be thereby increased, assuring you that I will take pains to serve you in gratitude and report to you from time to time the happy progress of affairs. In order to avoid repetition, I will beg your majesty to give credence to Count Horn, who is to recite to you that which his highness has imparted to him." Now, Mary's happiness was not to be long. The marriage was to last just 4 years because Mary died on the 17th of November 1558, of course leaving the throne to her half-sister Elizabeth, who became Queen Elizabeth I. And sadly, during their marriage, Philip was away from England, looking after his other kingdoms, a fair amount of time too, and Mary was to suffer. Well, we don't know whether they're phantom pregnancies or whether there were underlying issues, but she thought she was pregnant twice, and must have been an awful thing to have to go through. But today we have to remember her at her happiest. She was finally, even though she'd been betrothed many times during her life, but now finally she was marrying a man who she seemed to have fallen in love with, and it was a happy day for her, that the feast of St. James in 1554. So we'll leave her happy. Thank you for joining me today. You can subscribe to the channel by clicking round about there. Please do give me a like as well, and you can hit the bell to be notified as videos go live. But rest assured that I will be back tomorrow with another Tudor event for you. Take care. Bye bye.